I got it. It was easy. 2, 4, 6, 7, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12.
Right. Okay, we're gonna have another couple folks join us, but we'll let them come on in.
Perfect.
We're at the top of the hour. We're in our final class. Yeah, so that's.
Can you hear me?
That's you.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
You guys?
Yeah, we've had people joined in online all afternoon, and each session is being recorded. We'll post the replay as well. And yeah, we're about to hear from Angela Bewick. All right.
Thanks, God.
Yeah, mindful eating, which is always, always, always important. You know, it matters less what you eat and more in how you eat it, right? So there's that aspect. But then there's also a very interesting component that you're going to bring in, right? Is using the body's intuition to tell you what herbs you might need and what time. How do we get there? Well, it's got to start with that intention and dropping into our awareness. And I think that's where you're going to lead us, right?
That's what we're going to do. We have, I think, 45 minutes. So
Totally.
we won't cover the deep, lifelong journey that you're all going to go on. But we'll begin. We'll start. With any sort of mindfulness practice, it's like, okay, first of all, what does it mean? What is mindfulness? When I talk about mindfulness, it's such a buzzword right now. I mean, I'm thinking like Jon Kabat-Zinn. Does anybody know? Is anybody familiar with his work? He says mindfulness is paying attention in the present moment to what is happening without judgment. So just observing, more of an observer rather than kind of trying to manipulate everything, as we often end up doing. So one of the things I discovered, so my name's Angela. I think I know almost everybody in here, and I hope online too. If you don't know me, I work here at the Light Cellar, but I'm a holistic nutritional practitioner. I study mindfulness, I study herbalism, and I'm finding ways as I go along this journey to how to bring this all together to make sense. And I found that for us, this current mode, I've been like shaking my head all summer going, why are we living like this? Why are we all so busy? Why does nobody have time for anything? And then I go back and I think, oh, I have this mindfulness practice. I guess I should probably be using that. But it seems like when we have the most stress, it's when it's most difficult to remember that thing. Because mindfulness asks us to stop and slow down and pause and listen and take in what's actually happening in our bodies. And it's a practice, because if we don't continually attend to that, we forget and we get further and further away from what we actually might need to do in this moment to help ourselves. I don't want to say like feel better, but like to feel and to be a little bit content and to feel a little bit at peace. And so I want to start with just kind of reminding us all that we have, I think most people that come to the Light Cellar, I have found, have this kind of concept already in their mind. We're sort of deeply intuitive people, I've noticed. There tends to be this real connection with our feeling and our sense of like, what is the right move at the right moment. But I wanted to take this time today because I think that probably even all of us are really get so busy that we don't have that chance to just kind of slow down and stop. So that's what I wanted to do today. So we're going to do a couple little exercises. Well, one for sure, we're going to do a very common, simple, mindful eating exercise. We're going to use the best chocolate in the world, in my opinion. If you're at home, so we're going to do this in like shortly, I'm going to talk a little bit more. If you're at home, I invite you to get a little something. This was traditionally done with a raisin. It's called the raisin practice if you've not done it before. But it's something small, something kind of bite-sized, and just have it with you. If you're at home, you got a minute to go grab something. It could even be, if you don't have any food, it could even be a drink of some sort. So I'm drinking a tea right now, but you're welcome. And I have some here if anybody wants some tea. I got some nice tea. Throat soothing tea, because I'm like, oh, I haven't been talking very much the past little while. I'm like, I hope my voice holds out. So here we go. Okay. So let me grab my notes. So we talked about what mindfulness is. Anybody practice mindfulness? Probably most of you have like some sort of meditate. It could be meditation. It could be just whatever sort of present moment awareness you try to do, even if you just pause every once in a while throughout the day. This is helpful. What is mindful eating? Mindful eating is, to me, a practice, like it's something that we typically do every day. Not everybody. I do know a lot of people who are fasters, but it's something that we kind of like engage in most of the time. And so because I was talking about building that kind of neural pathway of a new habit, or like a habit that becomes a common path that you can go down, which is what mindfulness is, or distraction, depending on what you practice the most. That's kind of the way your brain wants to go. Our mind is really benevolent. It always wants to help us. It always wants to kind of like support us. So whatever habits we engage in regularly, our mind will go there. It's like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And then because it wants it to be simple for us. So if it's scrolling through our phone, it's very simple for us to pick it up and scroll through our phone. If it's like, oh, before our meal, we stop and we take a breath and we smell our food and we look at our food and we consider all of the people involved in bringing this food to our table, that then becomes a habit that we can embody. And it becomes very easy for us to do that. And maybe you found just even me saying those words kind of had you feeling a little bit more like, okay, that's where we want to kind of try to practice to be. It's not always going to work, of course, but this is an ideal way for us to practice because it's an activity that we engage in so regularly, this eating thing. So the reason I wanted to bring it into a herbal kitchen is because I think a lot of us work with herbs. You come to this shop a lot. You're probably familiar with many, many herbs. And herbs to me are like the original superfood. They're like the food that is the least, I guess, messed with from its sort of original state, right? Herbs are very much the same as they were 1,000, 10,000 years ago. Broccoli is much different than it was 10,000 years ago. Nothing wrong with broccoli. I love broccoli. But you know what I'm saying? It's one of those foods that's like still so full of life, so full of vitality. And so how can we bring that into our diet more? All of us do. That's why we're here. And so, but I found working out on the floor, and the times that I work on the floor, I get a lot of customers coming up going, you know, you walk in front of this wall of herbs or this wall of tinctures, and you're like, I know I want one of these, but I don't know what it is that I want. And so in thinking about that, I was like, oh, this is very much like when I first started practicing nutritional consulting. I'd have people come to me and they wanted me to fix them. And some of them were like, wanted to be active participants in that. But often people just were like, can you just tell me what to do? And I was like, you know, eager to tell them what to do, because that's just like a natural thing we do when we get into consulting. But the more I practiced mindfulness and spirituality, I was like, wait a minute, I don't know what you need to do, but I bet you know what you need to do. So how can I use my practice to sort of guide you into getting in touch with that intuition? We have subconscious habits, we have conscious habits, and intuition is kind of that bridge that takes us between those two places. So I want us to really, like, first of all, believe that you actually can be your own kind of healer in many ways. And that's not to say don't go to a doctor, don't take advice from anybody else. There are a lot of practitioners out there who have a lot of experience and can help kind of ask you the right questions. But be wary of people who are like, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to take. Because you actually know better than anyone else what your body needs and what it needs to kind of work with. So that's the first step, is kind of believing that that's actually true, that you do actually have some innate wisdom that you can call on when you need it. But it requires you to stop and pause and take some time. So that's my vibe about that. That's what I want to say about that. Okay. Any questions? Anybody have any queries, experiences that you have had where you're like, oh, yeah. Okay, that's okay. Don't worry. You can talk to me after class. Okay. So one of the things I've noticed with herbs, and the same can be said for food, like I kind of use those terms interchangeably, is we often have this habit of saying what food is good for what herb is good for what. Oh, this herb is really good for this. That herb is really good for that. And I think that's really useful. But I think one of the ways in which we can kind of strengthen that intuition is by developing a relationship with certain herbs, with certain foods. And so what does that look like? Well, think about your human relationships. You kind of like go up to somebody, you ask them some questions about themselves. You might spend some time with them because then you see things about their behavior and their actions and the words that they say, and you start to kind of understand it a bit more deeply. Now, herbs aren't like that in the sense that we're not going to go up to them and say, hey, man, what's your name? And they're going to tell you. It's not quite that way. However, when we are working with that intuition and we understand that there's an interconnectedness amongst every living thing on this planet, we all come from the same thing. We're all star matter from the Big Bang or wherever the heck we came from. So there is a way to kind of sit with a plant or sit with food or work with certain foods and find out a little bit about their personality. And when we do that, we have a little bit more insight into what herbs might work for us in a particular circumstance. I'll give you an example. So I've been dealing with this really weird cough for like 8 weeks. Don't worry guys, it's not contagious. Nobody's gonna catch it. Nothing else, just a cough. And so I had to like really look at, okay, is this a viral thing? Is someone around me have it? Nah, everybody somewhere gets coughs, right? It's pretty normal. I had so I had to look at a few different things. Okay, first of all, when did this cough start? Did something happen before this cough started? Yeah, my mom died. It's a pretty big, major life event. In Chinese medicine, grief is stored in the lungs. And so, of course, it's very natural that I should have something respiratory related come up. Okay, so there's an emotional, energetic component to it. What else happened? We had a bunch of fires at the beginning of the summer. Okay, so there's some environmental impacts. We're finishing our basement in our house. I don't know if anyone's ever done that. It's a real mess. It's a really glorious, wonderful, joyful thing I'm so grateful for, but it's a mess. So there's another environmental input that's taking a load on my lungs. Okay, so I can change certain circumstances, like I can take more time to sit with my grief, for example. I can talk to people who are maybe professionals in that area and figure out ways to work through that. There's one. I can look at different herbs. I always look at herbs for this kind of stuff. Herbs have a lot of energetic properties. So whenever we think of grief for the heart, we think about hawthorn, we think about rose. Anything with the lungs, we think about mullein. And then we look at the quality of the cough. Is it wet? Is it dry? Like what's the state of my lungs in this case? Are they tight? Do they feel kind of too loose? And then we can go, okay, it's very easy to find resources for the energetics of herbs and the energetics of foods. So looking at, okay, what if things were at first really, really dry in my lungs. So I was like, okay, I need to loosen this up. So I'm going to bring in some ginger. I'm going to bring in orange peel. This is some of the things that are in my tea right now. I'm going to bring in some poplar bud because even though it's sort of like it has a little bit of a resiny, drying quality to it. It's also very moistening when you use it in something like a syrup. So those are the kind, you know what I'm saying? So you look at the conditions of what is happening in your body, and it can kind of guide you to what is the quality of that herb or the quality of that food. I definitely want to make sure that I'm drinking lots, like I felt cold, but I also felt kind of hot. So I want to balance out, okay, the kinds of foods that I'm eating, cold and hot. It's summertime. So I'm going to look for like lots of vitamin C rich foods. What is the landscape providing right now? It's providing a lot of berries and a lot of different, like at the beginning of spring, we had the spruce tips. I could put those away and then use them later. So there's ways to look around to our environment and see what matches or might help balance what's happening within your body. Does that make sense? So if I didn't develop those relationships though with those certain herbs like hawthorn and rose, I might not know that. So this is why I'm suggesting not that you go and learn everything you can about every single herb, because that's going to be a little much unless you're really into that kind of thing. But what are you drawn to? What are you noticing in the environment? What do you know? What are the foods that kind of come up all the time? There used to be when I was younger, I'd have a dream about something and then that thing would appear and then somebody would mention it. And I'd be like, okay, I need to look into that a little bit deeper. Now we have a little problem with a thing called the phones where they listen to us. And then we find out, oh, we get all these ads for strawberries or whatever it is. And you're like, wait a minute, should I be eating more strawberries? But it's like this kind of false algorithm influence. Okay, so there's where we use our discernment and we're like, wait a minute, is this actually authentically coming up for me? But this is why I think we need to kind of like go outside into nature, hang out with real people, put your phones, kind of tuck them under. I know Tamara and Jason were showing me their cool little phone thing that like hides it and you can like kind of muffle the mic and stuff. So, trick the algorithm if you can. But pay attention to what comes up. What's coming up? What are people talking about? What's coming up for you? How can you like investigate that a little bit further? Again, it's an intuitive thing, right? It's your intuition kind of coming up and exploring those things. Okay. So I want to do a little like practice. This is very simple, as I mentioned, super simple. You can do it anytime. You can take 10 minutes to do it, or you could take, like, we're going to take just a few minutes to do it. You could take even seconds to do it. But I encourage you to practice this kind of pausing, this kind of like taking your time a little bit, because again, it trains your mind. The whole point with sort of most spiritual practices is, like, as crude as it may sound, to train your mind to kind of fall into peacefulness, at least contentedness, because we can't control all of this. We can't control everything that's happening outside in the world, but we can control our response to it. And when we take our time kind of at the beginning, I don't know how many of you have tried to change a really ingrained habit. It's so painful. It's so painful just for that little bit of time when you're transitioning. But then all of a sudden it's like kind of easy and you forget that you ever actually had that really difficult challenge to begin with. So this is kind of like what we're doing here. We're trying a new habit, which may not be new to all of you, but you're getting an opportunity to practice it anyway. And then you take your time at first. You really, really have to be intentional. You really have to kind of like concentrate on it. And then it becomes easier and easier. It's like treading a path. When you're first going through the path, it's like you may need a bushwhacker. But then all of a sudden, it wears down more and more and it becomes a lot easier. So that we're going to just continue treading that path. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay. Groovy. Awesome. This is the chaga maple vanilla chocolate that we have at the Light Cellar. Is everybody okay to eat it? Because I can find something else in the cupboard if anyone's like, I don't want sugar. We got a whole pantry full of stuff. Malcolm can grab us something else. It's just whatever you want. Go on in there. Help yourself. Everyone's okay with a little bit of chocolate? Okay. It's like really good quality chocolate, I assure you. And if you don't like chocolate, it's okay. You don't have to eat it. We can do it with something else. All right. So I'm going to hand this out to you. Don't eat it quite yet. Just hang on to it for a sec. You're welcome. You are welcome. My pleasure. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You are so welcome. My pleasure. Malcolm, would you like some chocolate? I know you barely get to try this stuff. Okay, so this is a simple practice. We're doing this with one piece of chocolate. If you were having a meal, you're maybe going to adapt this a little bit. We got to begin for the best part. Don't eat it yet. Hang on to it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so it's all good. It's all good. I remember when I was first started meditating, I had a baby, brand new baby. And I had a really strong, solid meditation practice. And then I gave birth to a child. And I was like really wanting to have that strong meditation practice again. And just when I would kind of go into it, the baby would wake up or the baby would start crying. And I went to my meditation teacher and I said, I don't know what to do. The baby keeps interrupting my meditation. And he laughed and he's like, there's no such thing as interrupting a meditation, because a meditation is being present with what's happening. So just keep that in mind if you ever decide to take up a meditation practice. And you get really annoyed when your spouse walks in the room or the phone rings or whatever happens. There's no interruption. Just carry on. Okay, there's one left for me. Perfect. Okay, so let's just take a minute. Find your feet on the ground if you can. If you're not, just imagine. If you're on a high chair, or you're welcome to move to a small chair. You can also stand up if you're sick of sitting. Standing up is fine too. And we're just going to let our feet just kind of feel into the ground. If you want to close your eyes, you're welcome to close your eyes. If you feel more comfortable having your eyes open, just kind of take a steady gaze somewhere in front of you on the floor, on something that's not moving, and allow yourself to just kind of relax. So we're going to start with our feet. Your feet are touching the ground. What can you feel on the bottoms of your feet? Can you relax into your ankles? If you can imagine your breath kind of going into the areas that I'm mentioning. Can you relax into your knees, up your thighs, into your pelvis? Can you feel your seat? Can you breathe 360 degrees into your rib cage, around into your back? Can you allow your breath into your shoulders? If your shoulders can drop a little bit more, allow them to drop. Can you feel your breath floating down into your arms, your elbows, your wrists, your hands, your fingers? Can you breathe into your collarbones, tops of your shoulders, all around your neck, your throat? And you allow your jaw, your tongue, your face to relax. Can you calm the space between your eyes, your forehead, your scalp? And just allow 3 breaths in your own time to fill your body and release from your body. And when you're ready, you can choose to open your eyes or you can keep them closed, whatever is easiest and most practical. We're going to grab our little cup of chocolate. You can hold it in your hand, maybe in the cup so it doesn't melt. Then I invite you to smell the chocolate. You can bring it to your nose. Is there any thoughts or memories or feelings that come into your body? You can just kind of note them casually and then let them go. Now, if you want to look at the chocolate, what do your eyes observe? If you are a tactile person like me, you can begin to touch the chocolate, feel it. What's the story of this chocolate? Where did it come from? Besides the light cellar. How does it feel? Is there anything happening in your mouth? Is your mouth watering? Are you feeling peaceful with this process, or is it a little bit like impatient? You want to eat the chocolate right now. No wrong answers, just observing what is happening. Keep breathing if you've forgotten. And now you can take a piece of chocolate. I invite you to put it in your mouth, but don't chew it yet. Just kind of place it in your tongue and let it kind of sit for a minute. What does it feel like in your mouth? What's the sense of the chocolate in your mouth? Again, just noting any feelings or any thoughts that come up. You can start to move the chocolate around your mouth a little bit, if you like. It may be starting to melt in your nice warm little mouth. And when you're ready, you can take just a mindful little bite. But take your time, really take your time. Can you sense the different flavors in the chocolate on your tongue? Our tongue has different taste buds for sweet, sour, bitter, all through it, from the front to the back. Can you sense any of those? And whenever you're ready, you can swallow if it hasn't already melted completely in your mouth. And just take a minute to kind of observe the after effects of the chocolate in your mouth, the feelings in your heart. Are your shoulders relaxed still? You can take a deep breath. If you want to kind of wiggle your fingers and your toes, or rock in your seat, you're welcome to do that, whatever feels good. If you are feeling like this chocolate is what the British would call moreish and you want more, there is more up here. I invite you to come and get some. And I'm going to ask you about that in a minute, but I just want to ask Malcolm first if he has a charger for his phone. The practicalities of life.
It's been all day.
It's been all day going strong. So what does anybody, first of all, does anybody want some more chocolate before we? Yes.
I think we all.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let me give my hands a quick wash. what, you can see why they do this with a raisin, because it doesn't quite melt in your mouth, right? Has anyone, it is one of those things, I think, we have this cephalic part of our brain. It's called the cephalic. I don't know if we ever talked about it in class, but it's the part of your brain that tells, that your stomach and your body tells you've eaten, you're good. And it's really only activated when we're in a rest and digest state, when we're in that sort of parasympathetic state. It's really hard for the stomach and the body and the brain to connect that way when we're in a rush, because we're in sympathetic, we're in fight or flight mode, and our body kind of goes into survival rather than calm. And as I said, we don't have necessarily the ability to tell ourselves, oh, I'm full, if we're like going. And, part of mindful eating certainly is not worrying about, calories and weight and all of that stuff. That stuff's important, but it's not as important as our culture says it is. It's actually more important that we can kind of take care of ourselves in a really healthy and kind of authentic way. So taking our time as we just did, and this, I understand, I recognize this is not always practical for every single meal that you're eating, right? Because we do have lives. But what are the ways in which we can kind of simplify or slow down our life so that we can have a bit more time to practice this kind of thing? So was there anything that came up? Anything you were like, oh, that you want to share? You don't have to share. If you're happy to just like keep it to yourself, I'm happy with that too. But if there's anything that you're like, oh, I noticed that, or I've done this exercise before, but I didn't remember this thing.
I saw few fields and a guy clearing sacks. And then I do the salt.
Oh, so the little bit of the ocean came in for you. Okay, I'm going to pass this around. Oh, Malcolm's going to pass it around. What a pal. Yeah, there's, I think one of the, to me, like a deeper spiritual I don't want to say problems, issues, I guess, or challenges that I see is there's a lot of disconnection in the world. We're really quite disconnected from our neighbors, from nature, maybe not this particular group, but there's a lot of issues I see coming about, especially with younger people, around disconnection. And what comes out of disconnection, other than, a whole host of things, is a lot of our mental health problems that we see, like anxiety, depression, these things, even attention dysregulation can come out of the sense of disconnection. One of the things I love about mindful eating, and I love about even working here, because we really think about that, the light cellar is really intentional about where we get our ingredients, for example, is there is that sense of connection. And when you think about, we do this with our kids, we've done this with our kids for a long time. I think they're kind of forgetting it now because they're teenagers, but we always have this, where did this food come from? Who brought this to us? Like every single thing we have is because of the generosity of someone else, or the work of someone else, the glasses that we're wearing, the clothes we're wearing, this table, this computer. It's all other people's efforts putting things together. And yeah, we could say, oh, well, they need to make money, they need to make a living, or, depending on where this computer was made, they were forced to get those things. Yeah, that's all maybe true. But at the very simple, they did that effort. They put that effort in, and this is the consequences. And thinking about that with food, I think, is so important to be like, this food, I mean, we don't grow cacao in Canada, so it came from somewhere else. We know that because we're buying it here, there's a connection with those farmers, and we know that the light cellar knows where that cacao is coming from, and it's not through unfair trade or anything like that. So that's a blessing. And I think it's great, Jason, that you mentioned that, because it's like, oh, this is where we can really remember that we are all interconnected. Like, thank God there's not just one of us on this planet, because we would not last long. We all have different interests. We all have different skills. And yeah, it brings us all of this. So it's a real happy thing. Anything else come up for anyone? Has anyone done this exercise before?
I haven't done it before, but when I was smelling the chocolate,
Mm-hmm.
the first thing that came to my mind was light selling. I always connect light selling with the quality chocolate. Well, if you're not, and that brought up feelings of just comfort, because I find the light seller ambiance community sense here. It's kind of like an oasis from the rest of the city. The rest of the city, the rest of the world get to me.
Yep.
Come down with myself and spend some time here, have that kind of comforting sense of community.
Yeah.
Stress.
Yeah. I agree.
Like little spikes or little things coming off the chocolate.
Ah, that's very cool. Yeah. It makes me want to go to the places where cacao is grown.
Yes.
And find out more. Mm-hmm. But you can do this with anything. You can do this with any of your meals. I encourage you to just, even if it's just like a quick second. But we can try to like eat a meal without distractions. Aside from, I do think mealtime can be a very good time to connect with our family members, which can be a double-edged sword, because if you have really stressed out, whiny, complainy family members, you can be eating and be like, oh my God, I don't want to listen to your, but it may be an opportunity for you to kind of ground, like you can use the food as like when we meditate, we have something like we have an anchor. So for some people, the anchor is the breath. For other people, it's just like a feeling of love in their heart. It could be, if you're like have a visual thing, it could be, okay, the visual anchor on the floor. There's some kind of anchor. And you can use this plate of food or whatever as your anchor, where you're like, okay, listening to this person, maybe complaining or going off on a maybe negative trail. And you can kind of anchor yourself in that meal. And there may be some wisdom that comes out of you that can help redirect that conversation to not such a negative path, or you'll be able to receive it and just kind of let them have their minute. I had a psychologist who said, it's good to have like your 20-minute complaint time. And then that's it. You have your time period of complaint in the family or wherever for yourself. And then that's it. You don't complain again until the next day at 4:00 for your 20 minutes of complaining or whatever it is. And it is helpful because it kind of, again, that complaining or that negative mind, like pathways can be a habit that we can kind of fall into. And so to kind of redirect that and using the food as that anchor that can kind of bring you back in can be really helpful. So yeah. Any other questions, comments, queries? That's kind of all I have for you all. I know everybody's like, what, aren't you going to talk for 45 minutes? No. I mean, I could talk for 45 minutes. But yeah, I invite you to practice this. Is anybody interested? You're all going to say yes. You're all going to say, yes, I'm super interested. Do you have any practical questions about like, oh, wait, how does this work if you have toddlers? Or grumpy grown-ups?
You're talking to your body is requesting or requiring.
Yes.
How do you check in what that might be?
Yeah, so how do you check in? Tamara's asking, how do you check in with your body to see what that food or herb might be? So there's a couple things. One, cravings can go both ways. Cravings can come for a number of reasons. But if you, like I said, if you have that kind of firm determination that I'm going to follow my intuition, practically speaking, no harm comes to anyone, but I'm going to follow my intuition around, kind of being guided to what food, what herb might work for me. So that's where we're going to start. Then you have a craving for something. And you can kind of deconstruct that craving. Cravings come for a number of reasons. You might have candida, and your candida has hijacked your brain and is like, give me sugar. So that's something to consider. However, but sometimes you're craving sugar because you need energy, because you need, a lot of the sugary, quote, sugary foods have minerals in them. So kind of exploring that a little bit and being like, I'm just like, I can't get enough carbs. Well, how much fat have you had today? For example, because fat is a really long, like we need fat in our diet. We need a certain amount of fat. Some of us more than others, right? Depending on where we're at. And yeah, so chips, it may be a salty thing. It may be that there's something called the 8 types of hunger. It may be, and 8 types of hunger is like very sensory based. So eye hunger, ear hunger, mouth hunger. There could be something in that, like it could be a fat thing, it could be a salt thing. It could just be that crunchy flavor that your body's craving. There could be an emotional factor to it. That's heart hunger, where it's like, okay, there's some comfort that comes with, like, what do I associate chips with? When did I first have chips? Like, it might be an opportunity to look back in your history and be like, we always had chips. When my parents went out on dates, they would buy us a bag of chips for the babysitter. It was like a treat. And so maybe there's some comfort there that I'm associating, because I love potato chips too. I think but they're also designed to make us want more. So thinking about, okay, well, could I do something? Could I make kind of like beet chips at home that might kind of mimic the same thing and also have a different quality? Not that there's anything wrong with potato chips, but you might be able to make them with a better oil, a better quality salt. You get now all the benefits of beets, which are, contained in that beautiful color. So good for our liver, good for our lungs. So yeah, I think just looking at, again, without judgment, because oftentimes we're like, oh, I shouldn't be having those chips or, whatever. Then you can do all the things like, okay, I'm going to put chips in this little bowl and I'm going to eat these chips and I'm going to enjoy them, because often we do that where we're like, I have this bowl of chips. I know I shouldn't be eating it. So we like shovel it in. And then that cephalic process doesn't get triggered where we're like, we didn't eat anything. So okay, I'm going to put some more in here and keep eating them. So it may be a matter of just really enjoying that exercise that we just did with some potato chips and seeing if it's different than when, you're just sitting kind of quietly trying to eat them so nobody sees them. I'm speaking from experience here. So yeah, looking at the 8 types of hunger can be helpful. That's Jen Chosen Bays is the name of that woman. She's awesome. She's I think she's an ordained nun at this point, but she's a Buddhist practitioner who works a lot with mindful eating. She's I think that part of that is like not being so hard on ourselves. It's really important because I think the world's hard enough on us, really. Let's try to invite some calm.
Yeah. What the saying is that in North America, there's a lot of guilt around our food.
Yeah.
And I could work and watch people. Everybody's on the go grabbing quick sandwich.
It's like it's good to be busy. It's like a brag,
It often
yeah. Yes.
Take your hour off lunch.
Yeah.
And if I contrast that to European cultures, which actually take the time to sit down, they don't eat on the run.
Yes.
Considered very rich.
Yeah.
Sit down, they made the full set of admire the presentation, the food and the colors
and you're with the people that you love. Yeah. Yeah.
I think we don't take that time. And I find it interesting because one of my colleagues at work is from a Latin culture. She has a little roll up placemat and utensil set in her bag.
Yeah.
She actually in that kitchen, she'll put out her placemat, her utensils.
She has like a ritual for her meals. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like you're almost kind of focusing yourself on this is my time now.
Yes.
Enjoy this and this.
Yeah.
Instead of just rushing.
I think if each of us kind of engaged in that behavior, we can kind of maybe see if we can ripple it out to our other friends and coworkers and
everybody working the you got a placemat, you brought your.
Yeah.
But in her culture, it's flourish to
Just-
gobble down.
And to sit at your desk. I think a lot of us do that where we sit, we're like, oh, I got this work to do. I myself am guilty of this. I've got this work to do. I'm going to eat. Okay, I'm going to sit down and do my work while I'm eating, which is like, I don't feel as good and satisfied after that meal as I would if I just kind of put my computer aside and just looked out the window or went outside. I mean, it's hard right now with the wasps. Like I'm so bummed about the wasps at the moment, but to sit outside and just kind of give your eyes a break, look out to the distance and enjoy your meal. I think it helps us feel more satisfied.
Yeah, and I think bring a sense of respectfulness back to our meal time,
Mm-hmm.
but also to ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
You're gonna die if you don't have
Yeah.
enough time to build those connections, relationships. You're gonna suffer mentally and emotionally.
Yeah. Your health begins to fade. So I think too, yeah, Tamara, just like working on the relationship, like having the intention to work, because it is so subtle and it's so individual. So to find, it's an ongoing process. Like I'm still in that process where I wanted to know everything about all the plants at once. And then I was like, oh, I mean, I'm fortunate enough that I get to work with the plants a lot during the day. So making a hawthorn tincture, for example, or a hawthorn oxymel, or it really gives me it has deepened my relationship with hawthorn that I never would have had otherwise. So I think just like keep playing, keep exploring, and trust that you know, or at least you may know who to ask, right? Like it might just be a matter of like, this is something I want to find out, and then just wait and see what happens. Yeah. Because it is an ongoing process. I don't think we ever get to the point where we're like, okay, that's it. I know everything. I got it. I know exactly what, it's like this is where patience comes in, patient acceptance, and just kind of waiting to see and continuing to experiment. I think that's the best gift we can give to ourselves. Except with hard drugs. Don't experiment with hard drugs, guys. No good. No good. Yeah. Go all in. Keep with the natural stuff, you know what I'm saying? If it doesn't grow on the planet, if it's made in a lab, don't eat it. Okay. Any questions? Okay, I'm gonna stick around for a minute. If anybody has questions, come and talk to me. Thank you all so much. Bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, my online friends. If you have questions, let me know.
Thanks for chocolate at this.
Well, I could have chosen raisins, but I think it would be ridiculous to have a mindful eating exercise at the light cellar and not do chocolate. There's more chocolate here too, by the way. Anybody wants some? I'll for some.
As far as your cough is concerned, have you ever thought of taking nicotine gum or nicotine?
You know, it's funny you should say that because